Shane Beamer, not a top 25 head coach in college football. That's apparently what On3 thinks. We, per usual, tell you why that is absolute BS and maybe one of the dumbest things we've heard in this very, very new offseason. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. It is Thursday as we're recording this, so we're close to the weekend. Thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by, drumroll please, our friends at Game Time. Make sure you go download the app today for all your ticketing needs. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get into this. I was flabbergasted when I saw this. And again, I don't want this to be like a trend of shows where it's like, South Carolina disrespected again. But what On3 put out yesterday was one of the dumbest things I have seen in terms of like ranking coaches in a while. And not even just with Shane Beamer, just in general. Now, let me tell you this also. Making a ranking and then putting it out to the internet is about the worst assignment you can get in this job. Because everyone's going to call you an idiot. No one's going to agree with you. Or like the very small percent is going to agree with you. It's constant arguing, second guessing, all that kind of stuff. So I feel for them, and I'm sure that they put a lot of effort into it and they had their reasons. I'm just trying to figure out what those reasons were. And one of the things I hate the most in today's like media and consumer people that are consuming the media and social media and like people covering sports, one of my least favorite things that happens now is if you disagree with something, you just say it's clickbait. I don't think that On3 is only putting out clickbait things. This is a salacious list, I will say that. And again, I know they put effort into it, but you look at not one, but two top 25 lists, not the top 10, not the top 10, top 25 head coaches in college football. Andy Sables, Ari Wasserman, neither one of them have Shane Beamer in the top 25. To say that I'm dumbfounded by this is, I don't know what the criteria could have been. Okay. And like, listen, it's the same people at the top: Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Dan Lanning got a huge bump. This is Ari Wasserman, Steve Sarkisian, Marcus Freeman is at 5, which is shocking. Dabo Swinney, Deion Sanders at 7. Maybe that should have been the hint that this was going to be stupid. Kyle Whittingham at 8, Kalen DeBoer 9, Josh Heupel at 10. Mario Cristobal at 11, Kurt Signetti, 12, Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State at 13, Lance Leipold at 14 at Kansas, James Franklin at 15. So let me just stop right there. We've made it through 15 head coach names, and I didn't expect to see Beamer in that top 25, in that top 15. I didn't. Lance Leipold from Kansas, he is a good coach. He's been considered by like PFF and a lot of other people. They put out rankings a couple of years ago. I think like going into the 2022 season that had him at number 9. It was like before he coached the game at Kansas. But I'm pretty sure Kansas has had 3 out of the last 4 seasons where they end up with a losing record. They might go bowling, but they end up 6 and 7. To put him ahead of James Franklin is shocking. Kenny Dillingham has been a coach for like 12 minutes. It's shocking to me, and it only gets worse from there. Brian Kelly at 16. Do you know Brian Kelly has like a top 5 total wins for active coaches in the country? He had like, I think 10 or more wins in over, I think 17 of his 28 total years, and then in 7 of his last 8 seasons. He's at 16. Lane Kiffin, 17. Brett Bielema, 18. Sharon Moore at Michigan at 19. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa at 20. Bill Belichick at 21. Very odd. Lincoln Riley, 22. Brent Venables, 23. Kalani Sitake at BYU at 24. And Matt Campbell, 25. Here's the deal. Shane Beamer just won Coach of the Year in the SEC. He just took his team that was projected to win 5.5 games and doubled that, and they won 9 games, ended the year by winning 4 of their last 6 games against ranked opponents, beat Clemson on the road, beat a top 10 A&M team by 24 points, beat a Vanderbilt team that was that beat Bama and also beat Texas by 3, or sorry, lost Texas by 3, beat them by 21. What has to happen at this school in this program to get any sort of respect? Tell me, please. Because you guys warned me about it. You told me about it last year. There was no reason to be surprised. But without even the shock value of this and being like a bit of a homer and trying to defend Shane Beamer, it's also just blatantly wrong. It's just flat out wrong. Sharon Moore at Michigan, who has coached one season and also a game or two last year, they went 8-5. They beat Michigan, or they beat Ohio State and Bama. That vaults him into number 19. They were terrible this year. Brent Venables is at 23. So I guess my question is this: what does Shane Beamer have to do to be taken seriously? And I'm not saying he's the best coach in the country. I would not have him in the top 15 most likely. But I guess the other part of it too is we are a prisoner of the moment. What have you done for me lately? Reactionary group of people as humans in general, and then also especially with sports, constantly get wrapped up. That's the greatest thing I ever saw. That's the best thing I ever saw. Well, you just saw them. That's probably why. We just saw Shane Beamer finish as the SEC Coach of the Year in the SEC. Not Sark, not Kirby, not Kalen DeBoer, not Billy Napier, Shane Beamer. And he's not a top 25 coach. The guy from Kansas, Brent Venables. What has Brent Venables done? I don't even know. This entire segment might not even, it might just be me venting. And I probably could have done this with a therapist. But it's just shocking to me. And then I'll tell you what, Andy Staples, who I love dearly, great dude, does a great job. His list, almost the exact same names, but scattered all over the place. He has Deion Sanders at 21, not 7, because 7 is ridiculous. He has James Franklin at 7, not 16. He does have Sharon Moore in there and Lance Leopold. It's a lot of the same names. They're just not as high, and they're drastically different. But that being said, neither, no matter how different they were, included Shane Beamer on that list. Think about this. This is a coach that for years has been said that he's behind the tier of a Mark Stoops. He's not as good as Mark Stoops. He's not as good as Kiffin. He's probably not as good as Heupel. And then you look at the numbers and what they've done. He's beaten Dabo Swinney in 2 of the last 3 years, both on the road. He beat a top 10 Tennessee team by a bazillion a couple years ago. Again, and I'm not trying to just be a prisoner of the moment this year, but remember, guys, Kentucky was supposed to be very good this year. They were coming off coming into the season with a ton of returning starters. You beat the crap out of them. It's 31-6. Brent Venables is on this list. You beat him by 26 points. That game was over in the first 6 minutes. Are we awarding Sharon Moore and Brent Venables because they beat an Alabama team in their first year with a new coach? Did the 2-point loss for Shane Beamer really impact him that bad? I guess looking at this, and maybe a better way to have gone about this is, where does Shane Beamer rank? And for me, you have to look at it from 2 ways. One, where does he rank in the SEC? And then where does he rank nationally? We're going to get to that and more as soon as we come back. So before we go, remember, if for any of your ticketing needs, whether it's for women's basketball, whether it's a concert, whether it's, I don't know, maybe you're going to get a win and go to the Super Bowl, whatever. Make sure you're using Game Time app. There is no better ticketing service and no better customer service than the Game Time app. If you're looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, and you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat in the lower level of Colonial Life, and it was fantastic. Could not believe the value. It was an absolute steal. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly where my seat is before I walk into the venue. It's incredible. If you are ready to make your next event even better, download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, guys, we will be right back with the second part of the show. All right, so, and we're 10 minutes into the show, and of course I'm realizing like maybe what I should have done was done this part in the beginning. Maybe so. I was just shocked when I saw that. I was shocked when I saw the first list yesterday, and even more shocked today when I saw the second list. But as I always say, if we're going to talk about sports and college football, we're going to do it rooted in facts and actual numbers and statistics to back it up. Where does Shane Beamer rank in terms of college head coaches? The first thing I would look at is what's his record and what's his record against like good teams. Shane Beamer has 3 winning seasons in 4 years. The only one he didn't was last year when they went 5-7 against a gauntlet of a schedule. But he has he has overachieved every single year. In 3 of his 4 years, he has gone above, sometimes well above, his projected win total. 7-6 in year 1. And keep in mind how bad that team was the year before. That 2020 team that he inherited was awful. No offense. But 2021, they go 7-6. 2022, they go 8-5. 5-7 in 2023, and 9-4 this year. Now, you want to end on a better note. You've lost 2 or 3 bowl games, but that doesn't really factor into any of your, like head coach rankings, whatever. It always cracks me up the way people talk about Mark Stoops versus Shane Beamer, because when they talk about Mark Stoops, it's like, oh my God, he's a great coach. And you're like, well, not really. Like the numbers are pretty bad. He's beaten 2 SEC teams like in his entire tenure there that finished with a record over 500. 2 in his 12 years of being there. 2. And he is constantly talked about in like a tier above Shane Beamer, because unlike Shane Beamer and unlike a lot of other coaches, Mark Stoops gets graded on a curve. He does a tremendous job because it's at Kentucky. He's a great coach because 7 wins is the ceiling, and we should all, applaud that because it's at Kentucky. I like Mark Stoops a lot. He's a great coach, fun interview, super nice guy. But it's also time to address what's really happening whenever somebody talks about how good of a coach he is, especially in comparison to other coaches. And sometimes it's okay to say, yeah, it's great you did that at Kentucky, while also giving other coaches credit and saying, there's no, yeah, but there's no, yeah, like he's a great coach because this happened. There's no qualifier. Shane Beamer's ahead of him, right? He's obviously behind Kirby Smart, behind Sark. So the Dabo thing is interesting because Dabo's won 2 natties, so of course he's going to be up there. Him being behind Deion Sanders, this is tough because Deion Sanders has done a really good job where he's gone in his 2 stops, Jackson State and Colorado. However, I'm shrinking in this chair. However, he hasn't had to play super tough competition. And also, it's just, I don't know, like, I don't think the gap between where Deion Sanders is and where Shane Beamer is anywhere close to as large as they are insinuating and implying here. Signetti, whatever. Kenny Dillingham being a head coach for 2 years and getting that kind of love is just crazy to me. But in the SEC, he's behind Kirby. He's behind Sark. I would have him behind DeBoer. I would have him behind Lane, obviously. But I would have him ahead of Hugh Freeze. I would have him ahead of Billy Napier. I would have him ahead of Clark Lee, ahead of Mark Stoops, ahead of whoever's at Mississippi State right now, Jeff Levy, ahead of Brent Venables. Maybe not ahead of Drinkowitz. So, I mean, but he's getting there. Let's see who else. I would have him ahead of Sam Pittman, right? I think that's a kind of a no-brainer. What other schools am I missing here? Probably he wouldn't be ahead of Brian Kelly. I would make the case he would be above Elko. So I would have him ahead of 8 coaches in the SEC. That would put him like firmly planted at number 8 in the conference, which is accurate, I feel like, and respectful. Maybe 9. You could, I guess, make a case for 10. I won't listen to it, but you could make the case for it. But Shane Beamer is at least a top 8 to 10 coach in this league. And just like with recruiting, just like with like the baseball rankings, just like with basketball rankings, like you may finish 8th or 9th in the conference, but that damn sure usually comes along with a top 25 finish nationally because of how competitive this conference is. And I don't think it's something that if you ask Beamer that he would care about at all. I think it might be motivation for him for sure, but it's also nothing new. Just like we've talked about it, it's like, and you guys have said it's nothing new. Whatever it is, it feels like the moment South Carolina's logo is attached or the name of the school is across the front of that jersey, there is some weird diminished value in the eye of whoever's looking at it if they're not from this school. And it's crazy to me. Sharon Moore being ahead of Shane Beamer. So here's the question. Going into 2025, where does he end up? Where does he end up? I did a show the other day. We were talking about, it was with Chuck Oliver. Great job. He does a show. It's like a syndicated show around the Southeast. Look him up on Twitter. His name's King CFB. There's nobody I've ever met that knows just more off the top of their head about every college football thing ever than him. We were talking about, South Carolina, and he brought up, he was like, man, I don't think people are talking enough about how good of a job Beamer has done, not just on the field, but like with the staff that he has assembled, which is also a very big part of this. Like the quarterback and the head coach and whoever else, they're usually the ones that are going to get blamed for like the losses, and they're going to get the credit when they win. But the importance of making good hires offensively, which we have seen at this school. It wasn't that long ago. That offensive coordinator was got to go. Dowell Loggins he struggled at the first part of last year and then turns it around. But guys like Clayton White, Mike Furry, who's been like, very little experience on the recruiting trail, just killing it all like over the last like year and a half. Going to get Sean Elliott, like all those things, those are all part of the gig. And if you're telling me that Lance Leopold is hiring better, recruiting better, and coaching better, like it's clearly not just wins and losses. So I think it's time at some point when you factor in all those things, you look at Shane Beamer and consider him, I think he's a top 20 coach. I don't think he's up there with James Franklin. The Kenny Dillingham thing is shocking to me only because of this. Because I heard someone arguing about it yesterday, which was, well, he made the playoff. Everyone that was up here way ahead of, Lincoln Riley, Lane Kiffin, they all made the playoff. Arizona State was a great story. It was a lot of fun. I wish they had to play South Carolina's schedule. I wish they had to play Ole Miss and Bama's schedule. And that may sound like sour grapes, but like it's easy to vault someone up and put them on a pedestal and say, "Oh my gosh, they're incredible! Like, look at this winning percentage. Look at what the quick turnaround and blah, blah, blah." You're playing in arguably the worst conference in the country with one of the easiest schedules out of any contending team for the college football playoff. I think they were ranked 85th or it was 78th or like 85th going into rivalry week. So what does Beamer do to move himself up into these types of conversations? One, I don't even know if he wants to. I think he's more than comfortable just kind of like, allowing everyone else to underestimate him, kind of just like laying in the weeds and then doing exactly what he did last year. Please doubt this team. Please doubt Shane Beamer. Please doubt Lenore Sellers, all that. But it also is very, very big for the legitimacy of a program in the long term. If no matter how factual or logical or like accurate it is, it's a huge benefit to have your name, the name of your head coach, being talked about in like the higher rungs of success with the other head coaches. I mean, no one gives a blank about Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples like top 25 lists from a head coaching standpoint, but the way to be taken, or the way to be considered more legitimate, the way to be considered more to be taken seriously, and then also the way you start knocking on the door of the playoff, unlike last year, which we kept talking about this for the entire whatever you call it, for the entire few weeks leading up to it. But like looking back on it, it's crazy to me just how far away they actually were from ever stiffing the playoff. I don't think it was even anywhere close it was nowhere as close as where I thought it was at the time, for sure. But what does Beamer have to do moving forward? You keep recruiting well. You see what he did in the portal. Like he finished with the top 13 class in the portal. He finished with a top 17 class in recruiting. He has weapons all over the place. He made a hire from within with Mike Shula as the OC. And the first thing he did, more like that no one else around him did, the first thing he did when that transfer portal window opened, he made sure he had everyone in those four walls inside of Columbia and inside of the practice facilities over there. He had all of them within earshot saying, listen, we're going to pay you. We're going to give you this. This is what we're going to give you because this is what this is how much we value you. Don't go test the waters. And we're not going to look either. We're not going to look either. And this may sound dramatic. We've talked about it before, but that from a character standpoint, from a man of your word standpoint, and a leader that you can like actually trust with what he's saying, I don't see a lot of names on this list that are anywhere close to what Shane Beamer has in tenfold of that. All right, that is all for my rants. I apologize. I know somebody's in the comments saying, get to the point. I don't even know if there was a point, guys. I honestly don't know. It's been a crazy week with work, with the Super Bowl over in New Orleans, with my other job. And I just was shocked when I saw it. But I appreciate you guys listening. We will be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks. All right, welcome back into Locked On Gamecocks. Listen, Sunday is the big game. I don't know who you guys are cheering for, but I'm assuming it's not Patrick Mahomes, and that is fine by me. But whatever you're doing for the game, whether it's going to a buddy's house, friend's house, family, having people over, going to a bar, whatever, make sure there is no better way to experience the excitement of the big game than with Prize Picks. It is the best place for daily fantasy sports with over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded. Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Now, here's how it works. All you do is pick more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you are cashing out. So, I tell you what, I was looking at this last night. I looked at Prize Picks yesterday before the basketball games. I loved, who was it? Zakai Ziegler. I took him over the points. I think it was like only 14.5 or something like that. Chaz Lanier, over 2 threes, hit that. All of this is over at Prize Picks, and I challenge you to go start today because, one, it's the offseason. You want to have some fun. Football season obviously is winding down. It'll be over on Sunday. Make sure you go out with a bang. And again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all caps, for $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, we're going to close out today's show. Remember, there's 2 shows today. So if you didn't like this one, and I did ramble on a little bit too much, there will be another show as well. Also, it's the off season. So shoot me a DM, a message, say something in the comments. What do you guys want to talk about? What do you want me to spend time researching, talking about any of that stuff? Do you want to do more live shows and have more audience interaction? You let me know. It is y'all's show. I am just here speaking into the mic. So, all right, closing out today's show with this. Greg Sankey has been in the news a lot this week, and he's actually doing like the right thing, which I feel like has not been associated with his name for much of the last couple of months. But yesterday, he went in front of just a press conference and absolutely blasted the NIL system and collectives not because it's running rampant, because they're paying, like all this money, it's pay for play, it's the Wild Wild West, none of that. It's because of how bad and shady it's gotten at a lot of major schools, promising kids something and like a certain amount, and then failing to meet anywhere close to those the promises being fulfilled. He was on Paul Feinbaum yesterday, and he brought up just their alleged unfulfilled NIL deals. He took aim at collectives, and in particular, he reiterated his call for more transparency. But as dollars continue to flow, Sankey said he received word of some collectives having a hard time keeping pace. Then he added, is another flaw with the current system. This was his exact quote. It's not a healthy system. The way we're functioning cannot go on. We need a name, image, and likeness system that has a level of transparency where there is protection for young people. There are a lot of reports about promises made that weren't fulfilled, deals that were struck that were never authorized, and problems that come. Collectives are out there, but I hear about collectives that are struggling to pay bills for promises made. That is not a healthy system. The way we're functioning cannot go on. Here's the thing. So this is not going to be received very well outside of the SEC because people hate the SEC. He's the face of it. Literally, he's the commissioner. And people don't want to hear, no matter how accurate and factual it is, they don't want to hear somebody that they don't like, and especially somebody that has been better at them or beaten them in their favorite team over and over and over again. They don't want to hear that person identify the flaws in the system. There are so many flaws in the system. And listen, this is one of the things I haven't really said this out loud yet, but I'll say it now. Ole Miss better figure out a way to either make the playoff or win something of significance, because that is one of the teams he's talking about, and I don't care how that sounds. Some of these schools that are taking advantage not of NIL and the collectives, taking advantage of the fact that there are no rules in place yet, and it is the Wild Wild West, so they can make all of these different promises. They can do all this shady stuff. They can tamper. They can immediately get into the portal, all that kind of stuff. How many times have you seen somebody say they're in the portal and less than a day later they're committed somewhere else? Of course there's tampering. Of course there's all these things. Nick Saban talked about it ad nauseum. Greg Sankey has talked about it now. Something has to change. I don't think the government needs to get involved. But at some point, just like what the NCAA did, which was, you know what, if we're not going to make any sort of profit off this anymore, we're going to take our ball and go home, and you guys can figure it out for yourselves. That's what they did. They had 6 years to figure out the NIL stuff. 6 years. They did nothing. And then they just allowed everything to change in terms of law, the rules, regulations, all that kind of stuff surrounding it, and the portal and all these other things. They made all the changes at once. The moment they were not able to manipulate and take advantage of the system, the NCAA just backed off, especially with football. So what has to happen? I'm not saying Greg Sankey has all the answers. I'm telling you right now that the if your first response is to shy away, get mad, or tune out when somebody like Sankey or Nick Saban or Kirby Smart is openly talking about all the issues just because you may not like them, you're doing yourself a disservice to the sport we all love, because those guys probably know what's going on better than anyone. And at some point, I think what the SEC especially and the Power 4 teams are going to end up doing is, if there is no help from the NCAA, which they're supposed to be always, their entire existence is based off of making the lives better and enriching the lives for the student athlete at the collegiate level. It's a volunteer organization, by the way, that makes over $1 billion a year. But if you're not going to do their job, at some point, they don't need to have the NCAA somewhat be around and somewhat meddle and really make things not better, not worse, but there's no assistance. So how much longer is this thing going to spiral out of control until something is done? That's seriously, that's a real question. How much longer do you think this sport is going to be able to function if it's allowed to continue at this style and this pace? You got kids getting, $10,000 for visits. You got kids that are getting promised the Jaden Rashada thing, the high school quarterback from California a couple years ago that went to Florida and got promised $13.8 million. He was the sixth best quarterback in the country, not number one. He wasn't a five-star. He was the sixth best quarterback in the country, and Florida offered him $13.8 million. They didn't have that money. And a lot of people look at that and say, well, he's an idiot for thinking they were ever going to pay him. No. He is the talent, and he's a kid. at some point, the adults in the room are going to have to take over it. I don't know if they're actually going to be able to do it. So that is all for this 30-minute rant. That is today's episode. I appreciate you guys. I hope all of you have a great rest of your afternoon. We'll be back again tonight with another show. It'll be less ranty, I promise. And I'll talk to you later. Make sure you're making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC with our buddy Chris Gordy as well. I'll see y'all later. Go Cox.